old days and they still owe me money. Laughing at my boss's jokes when ain't a damn thing funny. Honey, I'm home. Whiskey and tummy, recliner feels like a throne. 40-year-old Negro, Al Bundy clone, renting 3 bedrooms in the colored section. 3 kids and not a day goes by I don't wish I used protection. Probably be paid in the shade, dickin' bitches named Amy and Gretchen. Oh well, this bud's for you. Chase shots with brew with pot, blunts with Newport smoke. You fucking kids better shut up before I have to choke. The living shit, back and forth to the bathroom to piss. By the end of the night, incoherently mumbling, stumbling in the bedroom like, fuck you, bitch. Wake up and pretend nothing happened, that's marital bliss.
Hey guys, what's going on? It's a little later than I wanted to actually start on this upload. I had hoped that I would be able to find enough time in my week to sneak this out, you know, maybe Tuesday even, but yeah, it was kind of a shit week in terms of workload. Came back home a little too tired to actually put in the effort needed to do this kind of thing, so yeah, no worries how it goes. But yeah, I kind of wanted to this upload and uploads like it in the future serve 2 purposes. To buff out generally what I provide, because I mean, I don't want to do showdown lives at all. Like, I get that it can be, you know, entertaining with this, that, and the other dude, and who knows, maybe I can pull something like that off in theory, but I just couldn't for the life of me get invested in that. The ladder is not engaging on any level, especially in RU. RU, I think, most ladders have some notoriety to them, but I feel like RU has statistically been the worst. I'm pretty sure that I could check up, you know, Antar's stats or whatever and see like 70% anti-palm usage or some shit like that, and it still is decent higher up on the ladder. Whereas, you know, with OU and shit like that, I've understood that it gets a little better. I mean, you'll see stale things, but it'll be competent people using stale things. Whereas with RU, it'll be like, why are these people this high on the ladder with these things that they have, with these plays, you know, all that kind of thing. So, that just doesn't seem engaging. I don't know, Let's Plays seem just like an awful thing to do. I mean, first of all, you'd have to set aside huge amounts of time, like big chunks of whatever, and I guess I can maybe do that, but probably not something I'll end up doing. You can leave that to the Joey Pokems and the Shofus and whatever, and they can overreact to everything, because I'm sure that's how people react to things. Anyway, I'm shitting on people uselessly, and Joey Pokem's a good kid. He is, really. I talk shit on him all the time because it's easy, and I really can't be fucked to not. But, basically what this is going to be here is me showing some of my tour games that I take, you know, tour games. Maybe if I run into some other random game that I think is of really high quality, I just want to, you know, showcase them, because I feel like thus far I haven't played any of my, or shown any of my actual games. So when I, you know, consider someone's play to be poor or whatever, it feels baseless to an extent. Like, I don't have any real reason to be saying it because, you can't do any better, blah, 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 blah. I mean, I'm sure that most folks that watch my shit aren't immature enough to think that. I only have, like, a no group of people watching these things consistently, so I feel like, you know, people don't act that way, but all the same, I feel like it is at least semi-valid until I'm actually like, okay, here's me making optimal plays, or at least sort of sometimes making optimal plays. So, you know, And that's what that is. But I just think it would be kinda neat. And if you think so, feel free to let me know, because if you don't like it, I can always stop. That being said, I think I'll start just doing multiple smaller games rather than just uploading one at a time, because it feels a little more honest about the content. It's not like this is some really big significant thing. It's just like, oh, here's small tour 1, 2, 3. There you go. I thought they were nice. I hope you like them. Maybe if I end up playing in some bigger stuff, like if I actually sign up and am for some reason picked up after my performance last year in SPL, I'll maybe set aside like a full thing for that, because in that point I'll hopefully be putting more effort into my building and all that kind of thing, whereas this, it'll be a little bit slapped together because I'm just awful. I'm an awful person that shouldn't be put in team tours, but I do for some reason. Anyway, that's what this is going to be, and what's starting off are my week 1 and 2 POC games, or Pokemon Online Champions League, whatever. I always get slotted into LU because it's equivocal to RU to some extent, but not really, because you have Pokemon like Mandibuzz, Milotic, Rotom-H, Toxicroak, Roserade, and Mega Ampharos in it. So it's not really at all even, but I get put there anyway, and I'm fine with it, so I don't care. But yeah, I was a little lazy this time. I went with something tried and true that pretty much always does at least okay in these kind of situations, which is Spike Stack balance with the Doug Trio. The concept, of course, being that, there's a loose defensive backbone, something that can hold together, soft check a lot of shit, and the things that don't will, if I built it correctly, usually be handled to some capacity by a Doug Trio trap. So that's what that is. I have I'm pretty sure it's a much more Spadef oriented Bronzong with a standard Gyro Ball, Earthquake. I'm not fucking with Psywave. It's okay, but I don't want it on this. A pretty fast Roserade. I like to run a lot of speed on mine, usually. Well, pretty much always. Sleep Powder, dual status, or dual stab, rather, and spikes with a hefty amount of defense investment as well. I generally think it's much better on Roserade to have that kind of spread out because, well, Synthesis Rest variants are just super clunky. I've never really much cared for them. I mean, Life Orb, that's much more valid on, but on defensive things, I feel like it's making the most out of its unique characteristics by taking this speedier approach, both investment-wise and in terms of how it is played. So we're going with that. I have non-taunt Jellicent, I believe it was. I think it's just Wisp, Scald, Hex, Recover, and I wanted both Scald and Hex here because Sigilyph is, in spite of having both a Mandibuzz and a Bronzong, pretty inherently problematic for these kind of teams, and they can usually find a free turn to sneak in. I want to have something that can apply pretty consistent pressure onto a Pokemon like that. So that's what that does, amongst other things. Hex is a really nice tool that is unique to Jellicent in terms of bulky waters that compete for a slot with it, and obviously Spin Block. Doug Trio is Sub, Aerial Ace, Earthquake, and I believe Sucker Punch is the last move, though almost none of that comes into play, spoilers, and I have a rather fast Taunt Toxic Mandibuzz. I skimped on Defog here. It's not that Spike Stack plus Defog is inherently bad. I'm pretty sure that you can adjust your approach to the game in order to properly account for that, but on this team I did not go for it, and I don't think it would have worked here regardless. And what I went with for Ampharos is a really basic, I think it was Was it AOA, or did I run agility over Focus Blast? I think I didn't. I think I just went with Focus Blast because otherwise a lot of my plays wouldn't have made any sense. But yeah, AOA Ampharos, I'm pretty sure I just ran max speed, max special attack modest because I built this team something like 10 minutes right before the game, but they don't do that. So, and I'm playing against, I forgot to mention, Jari, I believe it is, Jarrii, Inu dude from Smogon, pretty cool guy. I mean, I can't really say much more, not intimately familiar with him, sadly, but he comes across as a decent dude. So he took a mildly similar approach with, Bronze Long, Bulky Water, Dugtrio, Strong Electric, and Mandibuzz. Instead, he, I guess, even is Poison, so it's very similar at its base. Mine has, I guess, a more strongly defensive inclination, whereas his is sort of focused on throwing some fast breaker type things at me occasionally. Do this and this. It's weirdly organized, but I can see how it works. I'm not describing it well, but yeah. Things to look out for. This can potentially be very threatening. Swords Dance is less bad because that's the kind of situation where I can sack the most expendable dude according to the situation, bring in Dugtrio, and he has to make a correct prediction a maximum of, 4 times? In order to not get dicked by sub Dugtrio, but Nasty Plot can actually be pretty threatening, as Vacuum Wave can smash, a Dugtrio revenge-killing effort, and potentially, if it has Dark Pulse, it will be beating Jelson. Oh, also, yeah, Hex also helps with Toxicroak because I looked at the team, and yeah, it's mildly Toxicroak weak, so there you go. I put a little more thought into this team than I gave myself credit initially, though not much more. And so that's going to be a problem that I have to acknowledge in my long-term play. Something else that needs addressing is my Ampharos is actually really potent against his team. His electric resists include thing that doesn't handle Ampharos at all, Rotom-H, and thing that dies to Dragon Pulse, Dugtrio. That being said, I am running no bulk, as I said, so if he manages to sneak the Dugtrio in on a sack or something like that, he'll be able to pop it off. It's not going to end the game for me, but it's something that I should consider when playing the Ampharos. So, based on that, what I'm going to be aiming for, at least in the early game, is to play aggressively as fuck with my Ampharos, to incite him to want to sneak in his Dugtrio onto this as immediately as possible, and upon doing so, and in doing so, I hope to both force his team to get withered in this process, and hopefully manage a situation where I can Dragon Pulse that Dugtrio on the Switch, at which point his team will cave to what I believe to be Ampharos plus Mandibuzz. So hopefully that works out, but we shall see. Anyway, based off that, I'm going to actually lead outright with the Ampharos. I want to apply as much pressure as possible, and again, get that subconscious idea that I'm going to be playing this Ampharos hard and fast. So I Mega Evolve, and I go right for the electric move to show him, because he's not going to go to Dugtrio hard here. There's no way that he's going to make that play. So I'm going to, just going off that, go immediately for the electric attack, show that I'm not afraid to pull the trigger on that kind of play, like right out of the gate, and I end up getting a crit, which I'll say doesn't matter, just because it doesn't end up mattering, but it is, kind of lame in theory, though, whatever. To avoid any shenanigans, avoid a Rotom potentially trying to trick or wisp me coming in, avoid that trying to sneak a Toxin, etc., etc., etc. I go for the taunt there, try to keep things even, and then making a bit of an unnecessary prediction there, honestly, but just trying to get the momentum going with that. I go for the knockoff and knock off the incoming Mandibuzz, removing its leftovers, which is going to come into play hard soon. But yeah, as I said before, this is a very fast Mandibuzz. I'm confident that I'm going to outspeed, so he can't Toxic me. So I just go for the taunt again, and here, knowing that he really has no reason to stay in, I'm going to throw a Toxic out, and I do again catch this Mandibuzz, which is awesome. So with this going on, with the Toxic up and the it being knocked off, it is severely restricted in its longevity. It has to roost infrequently to keep healthy, and what that'll do here is really give leniency to my Roserade to make some aggressive pushes right here, because again, it has Sleep Powder, so it can threaten to at least temporarily neuter the Bronzong, and with the Mandibuzz being as it is, and I'm assuming not having freaking Brave Bird, I can lob some Sludge Bombs at it and force his team to cave in that manner. So this is a pretty decent mid-game position for me. So at this point, I'm conceding that at some point during the game, this Mandibuzz is going to get knocked off. I'm not playing my Ampharos like a Knock Absorber. That would be, I think, pretty silly. It would be coercing something to go wrong way too easily. So I just stick to my guns here, and what I do is I throw another knockoff. I'm going to force this situation on him. There's really nothing he can do with his own Mandibuzz at this point. So I knock off the Rotom's Expert Belt here, notifying me that he's probably without Wisp. So just to get a feel for what he's got, if he has Thunderbolt, he'll go for it, and that's cool. If not, whatever, I can roost off the damage, and there we have it. So what I am, however, not cool with taking right now is compromising the Mandibuzz to the stall to Scald or any potential other status, especially when I have this perfectly good Roserade. So this is where that whole situation with Roserade on Mandibuzz comes in, because now I can pretty much go for Sleep Powder without caring about anything he does. If he decides to double out, scout where I'm coming from with this Roserade, that's totally fine, because his Mandibuzz is forced to come in, take Toxic, and if he is going to go for Defog, it's going to cost him another 12%, and I'm going to get momentum again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hard switch Ampharos here as he goes for, I believe, the Defog, which would notify me of, well, that. So he has one move left. It's presumed Toxic, but I can't say for certain right now. And now I'm just trying to take the middle ground approach here. I'm going to double right back to my Roserade, knowing that Dugtrio can't threaten me whatsoever with that. And if he does decide to go back to Bronzong, I can again press the issue with that Sleep Powder. I don't feel obligated to go for the Mandibuzz. As I said before, I am perfectly content with him switching back in, because I can just take the momentum right away from him if he decides to go for that line of play. So what I do is I decide to set up another layer of spikes. It's more so than anything else to apply pressure to that Mandibuzz to do this, that, the other thing. I don't think that the damage on Dugtrio nor Toxic Perk will really come into play, but it's more setting up the situation for long-term gain. So at this point that he decides to go out to Mandibuzz after burning, I think, 2 turns of sleep, so it'll probably be awake soon. But that being said, totally fine. I get to go right back to Ampharos again. I'm trying to set up this situation that I've been highlighting this whole time. And again, this Mandibuzz is slowly getting withered down without anything to fear. So I go for the Dragon Pulse here, predicting, well, not necessarily predicting the Doug Trio, but knowing that it's my safest middle ground play, and knowing that as I've been playing it, he is coerced to try to go for the Doug Trio play here. I've been getting way too much value out of my Ampharos, and he wants to cut it right here, right now. So I go for the Dragon Pulse again, and I catch it. So that is a really nice position to be in right off the bat. And what I think he was trying to do with this, well, this was, my thought process as he brings in the Milotic here, is he's going for the desperation shot of trying to either toxic, well, he did show toxic, but either toxic me or try to get some chip with Ice Beam. So trying to take a middle ground play, I go to what is at this point my most expendable member anyway, Roserade, but he actually shows the fucking Mirror Coat, which is a dope set, honestly, and one that I really didn't consider when I was making this sequence, so good on him for catching me there. But that being said, I'm still in a decent position by ever since the word. I can totally just go back to Ampharos, and I click Thunderbolt here because really there is no reason for me to Volt Switch. If he goes into his 1 Electric Resist Rotom, then sure, I still have a great matchup against it, and can just take it out here with a little chip on my end. 35% isn't all that bad, especially considering I'm not going to really be getting much defensive value out of this, and with his Milotic not having Ice Beam, I'm much less pressed to keep it healthy to check it. So he decides to send in his Bronzong on my Bronzong, bring it out. I just want to get my Stealth Rock here. It's going to be nice to have. It's something that really isn't going to have huge significance until I start knocking off things, but it's at this point that I decide to sneak in my Mandibuzz, as he's either going to set up Stealth Rock or he's going to switch out himself. So this is where he needs to basically, he's on the back foot here right now. Milotic, Bronzong, and his Toxic... Is it Toxic? Yeah, Toxic. His own Toxic Mandibuzz are struggling very much to break Mandibuzz. My Mandibuzz. It essentially will be boiling down to him trying to fish for Scald Burns with Milotic. Or, and that's the key thing here, is to try to make an aggressive push with Toxicroak, being able to either boost into I'm trying to get this sentence out. It's not working. Trying to switch into my Mandibuzz with Toxicroak, aggressively boost into it, and apply pressure from there. As I said before, if he is SD, then that's not going to do him any good. That's just going to be seeing me probably sacking Jellicent, sacking Jellicent, then going to Doug Trio and forcing that game on him, and maybe even taking a hit with Bronzong and KOing back with some priors. But if he's Nasty Plot, that can actually prove to be a little more threatening. Now, I have the Hex Jellicent, as I said, which would completely cock block the Sludge Bomb variant, being, Nasty Plot, Sludge Bomb, Focus Blast, Vacuum Wave. But if he does have Dark Pulse, that can be potentially very threatening because it both, navigates the issue of having to hit Focus Blast versus Bronzong, and it can push through the Jellicent soundly as well while avoiding the Doug Trio. So what I need to be wary of is that Toxicroak. So what I need to do is make sure that I never let him switch into my Mandibuzz on a Roost. I need to be very aggressive about avoiding that sequence. So that's what happens here. I go for the taunt, just trying to avoid any nonsense and avoid Toxicroak boosting on me. Just need to explain that evaluation of the end game. So, without any, I guess, better option presented to him, he goes for the Focus Blast, and I manage to dodge, which, I mean, honestly, I think I might have rather just seen the damage output from that so I could play it into my calcs, but whatever, yo. Anyway, I just go for the Gyro Ball there. It's my safest play. It keeps the Mandibuzz from sneaking in, and Earthquake was not killing my Milotic one way or the other. So, knowing he is going to presumably go for the, I guess it's a little bit of an assumption there, go for the Recover, I decide to throw the Toxic there, set up the timer right off the bat, and better yet, avoid Mandibuzz having to try to shoot for that, because if Mandibuzz starts throwing around Toxics, or is pressed with the issue of throwing around Toxics, it might yield that free turn to Toxicroak, so there is a little bit of implication of that. So I decide, since he doesn't have Ice Beam, I'm just going to sneak the Ampharos in, and I am going to click... Do I click Thunderbolt here? No, I just click Volt Switch. Alright, I guess I'm a little ahead of the curve there. And I go right out to Mandibuzz. No reason not to. I can, again, just go into these taunt knockoff sequences wherein he really can't force anything on me. He does go to the Toxicroak here. He's trying to get that Valley out of here, and is this the point where I decide to... Yes, okay. So it's at this point that I decide that I value the removal of Toxicroak's potential Life Orb more so than I do anything else, so I go for that, and I concede that that it will... There's a strong possibility that at some point along in this sequence, I will be getting statused in some way, shape, or form, whether it be Sludge Bomb from him or Toxic from... not Toxic, Scald from Milotic. I'm not letting this get Toxic, now I'll let it get Scald, though, because that would hurt its staying power in a more significant way here. But he does in fact show Sludge Bomb, which would lead me to believe that Jellicent actually does wall this. However, I'm still going to play it safe. Because who knows, maybe it's Sludge Bomb, Focus Blast, something, and something caves. I don't think that anything else goes from. However, knowing that his only way to make any kind of a push here is to go for the Nasty Plot right here and now, force the issue. I hard switch right into my Dugtrio, which I know that without the Life Orb boost, I can eat one hit from this and KO it with Earthquake in turn. So it's at this point that I pretty much have the game on lock, because it's just a matter of Mandibuzz coming in, knocking off their shit, and preventing... Well, I don't even need to prevent Milotic from doing anything. So I just remove Bronzong's leftovers, and then Mandibuzz sits on the rest of his team. So what I'm going to do here is just let my Bronzong die to his Bronzong. There's no reason, I'm just going to skip through it. He does show Psywave, which is a set, and it's neat, but yeah, there's just me sacking that. So I get the free turn to bring in the Mandibuzz. And yeah, I think... do I just go for the knockoff here? No, I'm playing it safe, as usual. As usual, typical me. But yeah, that's fine, because again, I'm going to take a Scald. If I get Scalded Burned, then all the better, because I don't even have to taunt into things anymore to prevent the Toxic. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I knock off here, I believe, because there's no reason not to. Yeah. So there goes Bronzong's leftovers. It has no sustainability at this point, so it just sort of will be sitting in on that, and also through the Bronzong on Bronzong sequence, I kind of skimmed over it. It showed that its only attacking move was Psywave, not Gyro Ball, Earthquake, anything like that. So I was good to go on that. And wow, slow is this is a struggle for a new host narrator. Like, slow is a little too slow, but normal is definitely significantly faster than I would like. So I think I just decided to speed up the process, sack the Doug Trio to the Milotic, and bring in Ampharos to T-Bolt twice. I think that was it? Yeah, that's probably it. So yeah, I T-Bolt the Milotic, and then a T-Bolt the Bronzong. And that was the game. So it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. Not the most inventive team on my part, but it showed what it had to do, and it did it. So I liked it. I liked it a lot. I'm gonna come back with game 2, or not game 2, week 2. 1 second. Okay, so game 2. This is kind of weird for me because I'm on the other end and the other person is using my avatar. So, whatever, that's how it goes sometimes. You'll recognize me by the shitty, all lowercase, pretentious sounding shit and jogger avatar, usually. But, this was week 2. Week 1 was the real good guys versus the okay people. I was on one of them and the other person was on the... I don't really know. I don't care. I just sort of play my games. I'm the shittiest teammate. Pokemon. But speaking of being the shittiest teammate, I actually kind of just didn't want to play this week because I think it was like 2-8 with the opponent's team already having won the week, and I hadn't built anything in advance because I don't have time to build things in advance, so I was just gonna skimp out on this one. But Kush really wanted me to play, so he passed me a team that I didn't like, but I used anyway because I don't know, it was something to do, I guess. So that is the building behind this team. It is knockoff Alamomola, Toxic, Spidef, Megalix, because they have Megalix, Modest Spec Scoodro, which I didn't realize was modest when I was playing, which comes into play but not really. A really bulky Black Sludge, SD, Toxicroak, Life Orb, 3 attacks, I think, Sigilif, and a Trick, Wisp, Scarf, Rotom H. The win condition is, I hope the opponent is weak to Bulky, Swords Dance, Toxicroak, and or Roost 3 attacks Sigilif, and or Spec Scoodra. And that's my team. The opponent's running some interesting balance. It's like this loose defensive core of Bronzong, Gligar, Scald, Absorber, and Shaman, and pretty much everything else is like very offensively skewed. I would venture at a glance that this would be Scarf Embor because his Durant answers are poopy, but I don't know. I never know with these. Sometimes people are just like, whatever, he'll miss superpower. So I don't know how this game works. And honestly, my memory of this game is not as good because I just am the best. Oh yes, I lead. Sorry. I lead Rotom Heat because I assume for him to, I don't know, I feel like there's this weird stigma that like you should assume the opponent leads with the Stealth Rock setter, which it doesn't usually, especially when he has a Gligar, which, I mean, it doesn't beat Megalix really, because EQ does maybe under a quarter, and I Toxic it, but yeah, I go with Rotom Wash, or Rotom Heat, that's the set, because it it plays well into, I think, most of his conventional leads. The Stealth Rocking lead option is handled. The Shaman to counterplay a potential any of my defensive core really option. The Gligar option, because luring Gligar and wisping it or otherwise tricking it, whatever, would get me a lot of value in this game, because this Choice Scarf is doing nothing for me right now. I want to try to dump it off as quickly as possible, and by forcing this issue here and now, when I don't think he's going to be opening on Ampharos, is the best option, because right now he is hard pressed to go in. He is pressed not to go into his Ampharos, which is, of course, something that was at Mega Evolve would be a pretty clean switch in to this Pokemon. So in leading off with it right away, I can force this, or get value out of the Scarf, which is pretty just terrible in this matchup right off the bat. So that's what I decided to go for, and he ends up staying in, which I'm totally fine with. I don't have hazard removal, which I'm not a fan of, but whatever. So he gets his rocks, but now I decide just to throw the Overheat, because his fire resist right now is an Emboar, and nope. No, wait, I assume for specially defensive Gligar, and I go for the Will-O-Wisp, and knowing that every Gligar on every team used by whoever will just use U-turn as the final move slot, so I throw Overheat, anticipating the U-turn, and it works out. That was nice. Now I Volt Switch out into, is it Alomomola? I don't think it would be Alomomola. Oh, no, I do go for Alomomola, even though I'm pretty confident this is the turn that he would be going for Wild Charge, and he does, which reflects a not Scarf set, so too bad I didn't bring Flippin' Durant, but whatever. I decided to cut anything, avoid throwing out the move, protect, just to avoid conceding free turns to something like a Shaman or an Ampharos. And what I do is go back. I go for Overheat here, knowing that he will presumably switch out. I was hoping a little more for something like Shaman or something, trying to get aggressive and sneak that in where he can. But also because I don't have another Emboar switch in, I am a little pressed to handle that. And alright, so this one I didn't really get. He doubles out of Ampharos into Shaman, I guess because he doesn't have Volt Switch, which makes sense in retrospect, but given what I know, but at the time was really weird. Anyway, I went for Wisp because if that is Focus Blast Ampharos, which is a nice set, it would be just sitting on my team and doing damage, and I need to set up that chip right off the bat. So, in spite of the fact that Fire Blast is undisputably my best move here, I went for Dragon Pulse because I'm scared of misses. I'm even Sap Sipper, so he couldn't subseed me or anything. So that was that. However, this is a Choice Scarf Bronzong, and I'm not afraid of that. So that's just fine and dandy. As he goes for, which, by the way, I totally forgot about it being a Scarf Bronzong. I play this entire game like it's just fucking, like, I don't know, Culver. I didn't know what the item was. I'm fantastic. So yeah, if I ever talk shit on your game, remember that I played this well on an average day. But I go for Swords Dance because if he does anything besides go into Shaman, I'm getting more value out of that. And if he does, I have two of the worst things for a Sub-Siege Shaman to be dealing with on my team, so I was kind of cool with it. So yeah, what I do here is I believe I throw Psychic because, yeah, I have... Oh, yep, nope, keep forgetting that I still think it is, flippin' other not weird item to bronze on. So what I do here is I glean from the fact that he didn't Mega Evolve, that he doesn't have Focus Blast, and that my Steelix can totally sit on whatever. And I believe I set up Stealth Rock here, yes? As he switches out? Yeah, okay. So now what I'm concerned with here, and this is why I make this sequence, he can potentially, if he just went for Flare Blitz here and then got killed by my Earthquake, set up with Cloister and win. Like, there's some maneuvering that needs to be done for it to work out, and he has to be like a set that actually beats Alamola, which it's well within Cloister's abilities to play around Momo. So I'm assuming that he knows that, or has considered that angle, and as of such, I'm going to try to sack my Steelix to the Embor here. I go for Toxic just to press him to go for the Flare Blitz, and I believe I click Toxic again. Or do I click Toxic again? Oh shoot, no. Alright, so what did I do with that? What did I do with that? Oh, whoops, dimensions. Fuck. The point of fucking professionalism right here. And again, there we go. Okay, so... Oh wait, no, that was just a misclick. That was what it was. I'm trying to pin down what it was. No, I meant to go for Toxic again. But he burns me, and that's even worse because, now if he sets up, he could absolutely win. But he doesn't, and he also throws Ice Crutch, which was interesting. I feel like that was just a miss-salve, but interesting all the same. So I wouldn't say that's necessarily a choke on his end, because there's potential of him just being a really weird Cloister variant that just doesn't beat Alamola, like some kind of Smash Life Orb variant, which is definitely feasible, just not as good for most metagames. In my opinion, I think that there's you can run like Sub or Lum or whatever, and it will do a lot of good in this meta, but I'm not an expert. I'm someone that's played maybe 2 weeks now, and that's barely credible. So yeah, I instead just go for that and KO him with Gudra. So at this point, I believe that I just clean up via this. He does go for Agility, which I should have... which I believe I did. I was aware of. But thanks to Kush's weird, almost max HP spread, I am able to comfortably live any singular hit from him, and I do just take it out, and take it out with Ice Punch. And that's just fine and dandy. I sack... Well, whoops. I tried to sack the Toxic Croak. He ends up throwing a Seed Flare, I guess, trying to catch me on a choke or something like that, which is fair. I feel mildly bad for missing, even if, you know, it is what it is. But I think it's at this point that I'm just like, yeah, fuck it. I'm gonna throw Fire Blast because if I miss, whatever, Sigilif still wins. I think he showed Psywave and Earthquake on Bronzong, so I was set to go either which way. I don't know why I switch out here. I think I just sort of won. Oh yeah, because this is where I remember that. Oh yeah, I tricked him right away. So that was the height of professionalism when I knock off the Scarf Bronzong to give him something to do. I mean, it didn't matter, but like, yeah, that just sort of sealed my professionalism into a nice ball, and then it just carefully booted it into the trash. So that, I think, is a good reflection of the fact that I can be pretty fucking shit sometimes, and by that I mean all the time. So when I say take everything I say with a grain of salt, that's what I mean. That's what I mean. I'm gonna go to a tier that I actually play, and hopefully you'll like it.